with Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. And now to my open. The presidential election in 38 days now comes down to the battle of political corruption versus truth, where one candidate chooses political correctness, the other brave enough to state the obvious. One says things not politically correct, not run through the prism of the contemporary political lens. The other says things that are oh so perfectly politically correct, considers words carefully, filters them, and then flat out lies to our faces. All the while, anarchy on our streets, riots against the one line of defense that separates us from chaos, kids shot on playgrounds with little notice, and virtually the same number of people killed in one city, Chicago, than died in the Iraq War. And now global terrorism enters the homeland. One candidate sees the turmoil, the other says everything is great and life is beautiful, and prefers to talk about name-calling and the implicit bias that we have.
Lester, I think implicit bias is a problem for everyone, not just police. I think, unfortunately, too many of us in our great country jump to conclusions about each other. And therefore, I think we need all of us to be asking hard questions about, why am I feeling this way?
Isn't that nice? It's not so implicit, Hillary, when you call tens of millions of Americans who disagree with you every name in the book. You call us deplorable, and you tell us we are not America. Who then is America, Hillary? The people you're bringing in from other parts of the world? But no, you're worried about Donald Trump's name-calling 20 years ago. Now, you asked yourselves, folks, what's that got to do with anything? And you compare that to a Secretary of State who lies to us over and over, plays fast and loose with our nation's highest secrets, drones and satellite locations, for which others, not so powerful and connected, are prosecuted. What's more offensive, words or actions? A woman who ensures no one finds out what's going on in our State Department, who along with her cabal are wheeling and dealing between the State Department and her so-called charitable foundation, and when caught, evidence is destroyed with hammers and bleach spit. A woman who runs the State Department like a private piggy bank, missing $6 billion during her tenure. You tell me what's worse, name-calling or lying to grieving parents as their sons' bodies lay cold in caskets at Air Force Base, at Andrews Air Force Base, and then turning around and calling those very same parents liars. Like your husband, Hillary, impeached for lying, perjury, and obstruction of justice, you do it with arrogance and righteous indignation. And although he may be impolitic, and while I am not a fan of things he said 20 years ago about a woman under a contractual obligation to maintain her appearance, your history with women is all about destroying them. When you represented a pedophile who raped a 12-year-old girl, raped her into a coma for 5 days, her reproductive organs destroyed, you not only laughed when your pedophile client passed a lie detector, but you trashed an innocent sixth grader, a victim, saying with no factual basis she sought out men like her rapist and she was mentally unstable. And you're offended by Donald Trump's words, but when presented with the atrocities of a group called Boko Haram by the CIA and the FBI, you refuse to take action against them and label them terrorists, a group that's killed 2,000 people and now straps explosives to little girls. Might your relationship with your friend, Gilbert Chowdhury, a convicted Nigerian land developer who gave tens of millions to you and your foundation and global initiative, be the reason? The way you, Hillary, and your progressives fight terrorism is with a hashtag, Bring Back Our Girls. You don't support women, you destroy them. Whether it's all the women who accused your husband of serial marital infidelities, sexual harassment, or, yes, rape. Instead of protecting that 12-year-old, protecting a college intern, protecting a woman who claimed to be raped, your job, ruin them. Destroy any woman who gets in the way of your ambition. None of it the predator's fault. The war room created to assault the right wing, the crazy women desperate for attention, who wanted publicity, like Jennifer Flowers, who you said you'd like to crucify. You called her trailer trash. And Monica Lewinsky, you called her a narcissistic Looney Tune. Until we found your husband's semen on her dress. And Juanita Broderick, who says you threatened her. And I don't know what you said about Paula Jones, but you and your husband had to pay her $850,000 for your husband's sexual misdeeds. And you call them all bimbos. She's gaming you, folks. She takes money from countries who stone women for adultery to death. They kill them. They throw gays out of buildings. They kill them. This is a woman who's corrupted the State Department, the Department of Justice, and now, I am ashamed to admit it, the honored tradition of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. What's important, folks, are not words. What's important are actions. What's important is how one candidate has chosen to lie about issues that involve the government of the greatest nation on earth. One candidate who has chosen to lie about how she conducts the business of the United States of America, our business, the people's business, the governance of our nation. And now that you know what she is capable of, what's more important to you, political correctness or the truth? And that's my open. Tell me what you think on my Facebook page or Twitter, #JudgeJeanine. And Sunita Ozdem knows a thing or two about how Donald Trump treats women. She worked for him and knows him well. She is a former vice president for Trump International and now joins me live. Sunita, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, you worked for the Trump Organization and you had a rather high-level position there. What did you do?
I was vice president of marketing for 4 different Trump International projects.
And as vice president, you had occasion to meet with Donald, talk to Donald, work with Donald?
Of course, also with his children, who were very involved in most of these projects.
Okay, and how did he treat you? I mean, is what you're hearing, you know, this person who is trashing women and is, you know, calling them names, is that what Donald Trump is like during business?
Mr. Trump treated me with utmost respect. And I will tell you that having been there for 4 years, I had never witnessed any inappropriate remarks towards any woman. He was very, very professional. He was tough. He demanded the best performance. He wanted results. He never allowed anyone to slack off, but he wanted to make sure that whatever your job is, you had to get it done.
Now, did he ever comment about your appearance or the appearance of other women? I mean, how often would you say you even met with him?
I met with him very frequently. Obviously, it was in a professional setting, but I had never witnessed any remarks in regards to physical appearance in regards to women. So.
All right, and what do you make of all of these comments that you're hearing now? What do you make of it?
Well, it's the election time, so I'm sure many people will exaggerate what's really going on. I was not at the company when these supposed remarks happened with former Miss Universe.
Yeah, that was 20 years ago.
That was 20 years ago. Right. I mean, I was dodging sniper bullets in Sarajevo, in Bosnia. So
you too? You know, Hillary Clinton, I think, said she was dodging bullets, but it was those tulips. I'm sorry. And you know what, Sunita, I don't mean to make light of it, but when you said that, I just made that connection. And in Sarajevo, and you came to this country.
So I came right after the war ended, actually, in January of 1996. And Secretary Clinton mentioned she was there in, I think, May of 96, after the war had ended. So there were no sniper shots.
No, not on the tarmac, and well, we know that for sure now. No. But as you hear this stuff about Donald, how does it make you feel?
I think it's very disturbing, because I can tell you having been there for 4 years, I had seen him in a professional capacity for a very prolonged period of time. He was always very professional. I think the key is really that people want him to be politically correct, to be diplomatic, to be sensitive to many different issues. But what they don't understand is that political correctness offends him. So, so he says what he thinks, and at the end of the day, he cuts to the bottom line right away. He demands the best of all people, and he keeps people accountable.
How long did you work for him?
4 years.
Okay, and you were in real estate developing and marketing. I mean, are you still doing something similar? And have you worked in other places? And how would you compare other workplaces to the Trump Organization?
That's actually a brilliant question, because after I had worked there, I ended up working with Louise Sunshine, who is very well known in these real estate development and marketing arenas. And she was way tougher than he was. So as a woman, she was tougher when it came to performance and also demeanor, because I must admit, when you are in the real estate development world in New York, which is dog-eat-dog world, you have to be your best. It's fiercely competitive. So now that I'm with Douglas Elliman in Florida and I work with ultra high net worth clients, I will tell you, I've learned everything what I know here in New York, and it's tough.
All right. Zenaida Asdem, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
And with me now is a Democratic strategist and principal of the Dewey Square Group, Marianne Marsh. Hi, Marianne.
Hey, Judge. How are you?
Well, it's been an interesting week, hasn't it?
It has.
Okay.
It feels like a year, actually.
Yes, it does seem like a year. All right. The numbers have changed. Hillary is now ahead of Donald by a couple of points, but you have always said from the beginning it's going to be a nail biter at the end. Without getting, too far into this, I mean, Donald stepped into it, she opened the trap, and he went for it.
He did, and I think the shift you've seen in the polls since the debate shows you that when there have been shifts in this election, it's been driven by events, not much else. So when they both won the nomination, they both went up in the polls. The conventions, they both got a bounce out of it. She got a bigger one, came back to earth. And now we've had a debate, and we've seen the first real shift in the polls since then. So the only events we know left in this campaign are the debates, unless some unforeseen something happens. So that's what's really been driving it. So you expect then, after an event, someone gets a bump and it can come back down. And I think she still has a stubborn 2 to 3 point lead despite the events. That's pretty much what you're seeing.
But given what you're describing, Marianne, which is the volatility of this race, it may very well be that the race, depending upon how close it is to election time, will depend not so much on Hillary, not so much on Donald, but some other event that people interpret as benefiting one or the other.
It'd have to be a significant event, and usually those are the kind of events we hope don't happen, right? So the known events are debates. What I think we're seeing now is, as we speak, Donald Trump's in Pennsylvania, and I just checked, and he's talking about jobs, trade, and TPP. A much better place for him to be, better than talking about the things he spent the last week talking about. That's what he needs. That was the best part of his debate. So not that I'm giving him advice, but maybe tonight he realizes in Pennsylvania that's what he needs to be talking about, not this other stuff.
And, don't you think, Marianne, as someone who is, someone who supports women, I mean, she's the one who brought up name-calling 20 years ago. Doesn't that open the door? I mean, literally invite Donald in to go after what happened. You heard my open, all of the things that she's called these women. I mean, she's asking for it, is she not?
I think in a political context, Judge, you have to look at history. And at the time, Hillary Clinton was trying to protect her marriage, and she was trying to deal with a very private matter in the most public stage. Once she knows,
okay, with one or two, maybe. Marianne, stop it. A lot of women have had husbands who cheat.
Hold on. Once she knew the truth, all that stopped, and you never heard it again. Now, let's look at the political implications. What happened after that? Hillary Clinton's ratings went up with voters. She went on to the Senate twice, et cetera, et cetera. So if Donald Trump wants to revisit that, they thought the fact that she had to live her private life out in public once women voters was one too many times.
All right,
you try to do it a second time, and he will lose the voters he needs.
You say once she knew the truth. How many women did he have to be involved with before she could figure out what the truth was? How smart is she?
I don't think Hillary Clinton would have gone on the Today Show or anything else and said what she said if she knew the truth. And I think it was pretty obvious to everyone at the time when she found out the truth. It was, look at her actions after that. It was very evident that once she knew the truth,
she didn't leave him. She's still with him. I mean, I don't have a problem with that.
That was a choice, but that's a choice.
I get that.
Judge, that's a choice.
I get it, and I don't have a problem with it. But here's the thing. She stands on a stage years later and complains about Donald Trump calling a woman who's under a contractual obligation to keep her appearance the same. You know, she calls him out. Hey, I'm not a fan of that, Marianne. I don't like that stuff. I mean, you know, my whole life I've fought for a level playing field for women victims. Okay, but she opened the door. That's what I think, and I think we're
all I'm telling you, Judge, last point. Politically, how women are going to view Miss Universe comment is she's the most beautiful woman in the world, and yet she can be criticized for her looks. What does that mean to the rest of us?
Well, it means
and if Hillary Clinton's marriage gets dragged out in they don't see it that way. They don't see it that way.
Yeah, you may be right about that. I agree with you. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for being with us. Next, he knows more about how to elect a Republican president than almost anyone alive. Veteran campaign man Charlie Black is standing by to talk about the debates and where the race stands now. Plus, this. Do you want to know who I'm going to vote for?
Yeah, who are you going to vote for?
I'm not going to tell you. You should have put a... Street Justice heads out in search of debate advice for Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton as the country looks ahead to the big rematch. Justice rolls on in a moment. A live look at Donald Trump holding a rally in the battleground state of Pennsylvania. So what does he need to focus on now to secure a win? Let's ask my next guest, former senior advisor to President Reagan and H.W. Bush, chairman of Prime Policy Group, Charlie Black. All right, Charlie. If you were running this campaign and you were doing debate prep with Donald Trump, what would you tell him?
Well, good evening, Your Honor, and congratulations on that opening statement. I grant you summary judgment after hearing all that. But
thank you.
You know, the debate prep should be fairly simple. He has big issues that appeal to the American people: jobs, trade, immigration. If he would stick to those things and not allow himself to be distracted off on these side issues and little piddling things, he would win. He had a good first 20 minutes of that debate when he talked about jobs and trade. So he's a smart businessman. He knows how to focus when he's in a business negotiation. I think he'll do a lot better this week.
You know, one of the interesting things that I learned about politics when I ran 5 times, Charlie, is that, you know, as a judge and as a prosecutor, I was accustomed to answering the question or making people answer yes, no, yes, no. And the pivot for someone who's not used to politics is a very hard thing to do. But where Donald made his mistake was not so much in maybe not prosecuting her, which I absolutely believe he has to do, but it's kind of showing the public that he's thin-skinned, that he can't focus on the real issue, but instead is focusing on things that are oh so insignificant.
I agree someone could have come away with the impression that he's thin-skinned from that debate, but look, he knows how to focus on the big things and the things that matter. She had no message in that debate. It was a bunch of canned talking points, including the below-the-belt attacks on Donald, and she kept coming back to them, but she made no emotional connection with the audience or with the swing voters out in the country. He did in the beginning. He's got to stick to his main points, and I think he will. Okay, so now let's talk about Michigan and some of those other states where, you know, she doesn't have a great record with, you know, coal miners in Virginia, and yet she's beating him now in these important swing states. Well, you know, the important thing to remember is that a week ago, before the debate, he was slightly ahead in a lot of these target states. I even saw a poll that showed him even in Virginia. Michigan's a little bit of a tough state, but, you know, if he were to carry the rest of the Midwest, he's got a good chance to carry Wisconsin. He'll carry Ohio, Indiana, West Virginia, the coal states. But you know, he had a bad week, so he went from slightly ahead to slightly down in some of these swing states. We have 5 more weeks to go, and I'm confident this will go back and forth, and he's got a very good chance to win this.
Okay, and in the this week when the vice presidential candidates debate, now Trump and Hillary are going to be back burner. What would you suggest that Donald Trump do this week?
Well, he should go out and have his rallies and deliver his message on the big issues over and over and over. And he can still do it on the day of the vice presidential debate. With all due respect to those 2 candidates, that's a snoozer. It'll have a small audience, and there'll be no news coming from it unless somebody makes a huge mistake.
And finally, with some of these, as the campaign goes on, Donald Trump, it seems that now he's got a commercial with his daughter, Ivanka, and the kids who are really, I believe, his strongest connection to the American people will continue to be out there. Why do you think Hillary Clinton's daughter is not out there the way Donald's children are?
Well, I don't know. They may choose to use her in ads. They've used her on the campaign trail. But let me tell you a remarkable thing. Hillary Clinton and her campaign and her supporters have done over $100 million worth of television ads since the Democratic convention. Until this past Wednesday, Donald Trump had done 0, none, and he still went up in the polls during that period.
Yep.
So the Clinton message is not registering as long as he sticks to his big issues and his message and his promise to make the country great again.
Charlie Black, thanks so much for being with us again.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, and street justice is still ahead as I ask Americans what Trump and Clinton need to do in the next debate. And next, my all-star panel is standing by. We're going to talk debates, polls, and how the all-important women vote. Justice rolls on in a moment. So, we're just 5 weeks out from one of the most critical elections of our time, and the polls are still extremely tight. So let's get right to it all with the events of this week and a look ahead at what's to come with my political panel, CPAC chairman and Republican strategist Matt Schlapp, and radio host, former senior aide to Senator Charles Schumer, Chris Hahn. All right, guys, she's ahead now. Is that a surprise, Chris? That's a yes or no question. Just say yes or no.
No, it's no surprise.
Is it a surprise, Matt?
No, it's not a surprise.
Okay, good. Now, given that she's ahead and that the debate was not Donald Trump's best moment, can he win in the next debate? I'll ask you, Matt.
Yes.
How?
A couple reasons why. Look at the Fox poll, Judge. 62% or so of the respondents said Hillary Clinton won. If you look at the 4-way race, it's essentially tied within the margin of error. The fact is this: Donald Trump is not expected to be some amazing presenter at a debate. That's not why Americans are flocking to him. They're flocking to him because they think he'll cut through the crap and tell people what we need to do to fix our country. And they know sometimes when he does that, he can be off message and offensive and strident. His bar to success is much different from hers.
Okay, so Chris, I mean, right now in a 2-way race, she is, it looks like 5 points ahead according to the latest poll.
Right, and that's about a 6-point swing. But I agree with Matt. You know, he could win in the next debate. He could come back. He could change it. But he can't do what he did in this last debate. He can't be drawn in to these petty arguments about his own personal wealth and personal issues. He's got to stick to the issues that matter. And she's also got to be right on message. She's got to do exactly what she did in the last debate.
What is her message, other than she hates Donald and all of us deplorables? But Chris, let me go back to you. Let me go back to you, Chris, for a second. When she brought up this 20-year-old Miss Universe thing, I mean, you know, isn't she the one who said, when they go low, we go high? It sounds like she went low.
Well, you know, look, if he hadn't kept bringing it up, nobody'd be talking about it again.
He wasn't bringing that up. She had the woman in the wings. She had this woman waiting in the wings.
It was a great comeback on debate night, but it would have been gone the next day had he not brought it up on Fox and Friends and then went on a Twitter tirade this week. I mean, look, he's got to stop doing that. I don't know why Kellyanne Conway hasn't confiscated his BlackBerry.
Absolutely. Wouldn't you do the same, Matt?
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, my wife does it to me sometimes. Sometimes you just have to stop.
That's why I can't get you, Matt. I've been trying to get you.
Yeah,
Your
but see,
wife's got
here's
your
the thing.
BlackBerry.
Here's the thing.
Hey,
The
Chris,
guy
leave me alone.
doesn't sleep. He doesn't sleep. He works all the time.
That's right.
And he's right. At least he'll be up for that 3 o'clock call. It should
No,
be
that's
yeah. All right.
That's
So let's talk about some of the all-important states. Can he win without Florida? No.
No, he has to win Florida. He has to win Ohio. And Virginia's a little tougher state for him, Judge, because for so much of Virginia's economy around the Washington, D.C. area is, guess what? Government. And he's taken on those insiders. I still think he has a chance to win in Virginia because actually Tim Kaine's a pretty lackluster candidate and won't have much effect there. But, you know, he's going to have to probably win. He's probably going to have to win another state like a Pennsylvania or a Michigan or Maine.
I'm looking at the polls today from Pennsylvania, and it shows Clinton 45, Trump 38. That ain't so good. Chris?
Yeah, that's going to tighten.
No, it's not so good. Hey, you know, look, Pennsylvania has been this white elephant for the Republican Party for the last 6 elections. It's probably not going to happen. Florida, he's got two big problems in Florida.
What?
First, there's an influx of new Puerto Rican voters who live on the I-4 corridor who are still upset about things that happened in Puerto Rico that might carry over here. Second, this story about him spending money in Cuba that emerged this week is going to probably play in the next
that was dismissed even by them. Go ahead, Matt.
You know, I'm married to a Cuban American. My father-in-law spent 6 years as a political prisoner in Castro's jail. Hillary Clinton is the architect of the Obama policy to appease the Castros. They want to open up full relations with them. She has no firm ground to stand on if she's going to attack Donald Trump. And he said the story was false.
Matt, I'm not saying they're going to vote for her, but if they don't come out and vote for him, and this story might dissuade them from doing that, there's no way he could win Florida.
You know what, guys?
Not going to happen.
You guys, now that you say that, only 39% of those polled say that enthusiasm motivates them. Most of them are people are going out to vote against the other candidate.
Yeah, this is one of those elections. This is going to be one of those elections where, you know, people are motivated against the person they're voting against. And that's unfortunate.
Go ahead,
I don't think
Matt.
that's right. I think if you look at all the polls I've looked at, Donald Trump always has an enthusiasm gap to the positive over Hillary Clinton. The fact is this. You talk to Democrats. Chris isn't going to say it on the show, but the base of the party thinks she's too taken over by corporate interests, and they think that she's... yeah,
you
like
think
Goldman
she's been
Sachs
there 30
and such.
years.
Well, yeah, and she's
Chris, go ahead.
Matt, if you want to talk about the base of the party and maybe the mainstream of the party on the GOP, they've got their problems on both sides here, on the Republican side with Donald Trump. I don't think the base of the party
the Republicans
has a
are
problem
with the
Hillary
establishment. That's the difference. Match
That's
left,
right.
Chris Hahn. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks. You, Judge.
All right. And street justice is still ahead. And next, we'll take a closer look at some of the latest polls with Lee Carter, our expert pollster. She's standing by, crunching those numbers. We'll get into it all next. One presidential debate down, 2 to go, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Here to talk about all the latest polls and what the candidates need to do to win over those battleground states, political pollster and president at Meslansky Partners, Lee Carter, joins me now. All right, Lee, I have this list of swing states: Colorado, Florida, Michigan, New Hampshire, and I asked the question of the panel: does Donald have to win this state, and what about Hillary? I mean, what is the truth with these swing states? Who has to win which state?
I think this is a year where conventional wisdom does not apply. And I think it's all going to depend on how things shake out. But honestly, I think that we need to look at Florida. If Donald Trump starts to lose Florida, he's in trouble because he's likely to win it. Pennsylvania is likely to go to Hillary Clinton. That means that Donald Trump has to get Ohio. The rest of it, I think it could go any which way. But I think those are the things that need to happen.
All right. Now, what's interesting is right now, Ohio, Clinton's got 45. He's got 42.5. So they're pretty close in Ohio. And in Florida, you know, there's about another 3-point separation.
We've seen a big flip in a week. In 1 week. week, we've seen complete change in numbers, and the week before we saw a change again. This is a race of moments. Everything is subject to change. People's opinions are changing constantly, and everybody's reacting to everything they're seeing in the moment for that moment. So who knows what's going to happen this week?
Okay, well, let's assume that nothing happens this week, does other than the vice presidential debate, which doesn't really promise to be very exciting, does it?
I can't imagine. No, where have either of them been, quite frankly? They don't make much news, either of them.
Yeah, well, you know, I'll tell you, for the first time, though, I have to tell you, Lee, we've got one candidate who's 70 and the other one's 69, Hillary's 69 or about to be 69. I mean, this is when you really do think about a vice president in the event, God forbid, something should happen.
Absolutely. They are very, very important, but they have both been a little bit underground. Really, all eyes have been on the candidates.
Well, they can come on Justice anytime. I'd love to chat with them. But let's talk about this enthusiasm thing. 39% are enthusiastic for their candidate. What relevance does enthusiasm have to an election?
I think there's a few things. One, I think that's why we're seeing so much volatility, because if you only have 37 to 39% support, a lot of people are fluid. They're subject to change. The other thing that's really important is when you're not really excited about your candidate, voter turnout can be low. And that's going to really, that can have a huge impact on how the race turns out on Election Day.
All right. And what we're looking at is enthusiasm, 39%. And more than half are voting because they don't want the other person to win. But you know what I think is interesting? That there was a poll that came out that 2/3 who think she won the last debate are voting for her. Only 2/3.
Yeah.
So the people who think she won still don't want to vote for her.
I think that it's really interesting because she did an excellent debate, right?
Yeah.
But how many minds did she change? We've known this woman for 30 years. We've seen this woman for 30 years. So she might have made her supporters a little bit enthusiastic. We've seen some of that in the polls. She might have switched a couple people's minds. But you would expect when she had a night like she had, that was the performance of her career, she didn't have a bigger bump. And not only that, her opponent, I'm sorry, but he did not have a good night. That was not the best Donald Trump that we could have seen.
All right, in 15 seconds, what would you tell Donald Trump right now?
What I would tell him is, number one, don't take the bait. Number two, do not, you got to practice your resting expression. Do not let her get under your skin. You are there to talk about your message, to get people to vote for you. Talk about jobs, talk about the economy, talk about immigration, talk about national security. That's why people love you. That's what people are there to hear about. They're not there to hear you respond to Hillary Clinton's attacks. Those are insignificant relative to everything else.
All right, resting expression. That means... That's
Exactly.
it?
That's right.
All right, Lee Carter, thanks so much for being with us
Great
tonight.
to be here.
All right, and street justice is still ahead, plus Judicial Watch's Tom Fitton gives me his take on James Comey's testimony this week. You gotta love this one. Fireworks on the Hill this week as House Judiciary Committee members grilled FBI Director James Comey on the Clinton email investigation. Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton joins me now with more. All right, good evening, Tom. Jim Comey is looking worse and worse every time he appears before Congress. And by the time John Jordan got done with him and Trey Gowdy and Goodlatte, I mean, you kind of had to, not that I feel sorry for him by any stretch of the imagination. You have to think the guy's been outsmarted and outlawyered and that his biases are showing. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I think he was playing defense counsel for the Clinton camp on the email matter, and that's why the Republicans tore into him. The way they handled this investigation and his explaining away the destruction of emails after Congress subpoenaed them, and who cares whether Cheryl Mills, Clinton's top aide, was the target of an investigation and allowed to sit in on her interview, Mrs. Clinton's interview? Who cares if she was given immunity to turn over a laptop? And who cares if all that information on a laptop couldn't be used against her? Who cares about any of that?
But those are crimes, those are felonies. I mean, and a local prosecutor could charge based upon the evidence that we've seen in these released emails that come out Friday in these Friday afternoon dumps. I mean, it is really disappointing. And in my open, I talked about, I hate to say it, but I think the FBI has been shamed as a result of this politicization of the FBI. But I want to talk...
just quickly, they're either the Keystone Cops or they're political. They're not the Keystone Cops.
They're not the Keystone Cops. You give out immunity to 5 people and you don't prosecute anybody, and then you give out immunity to people at both ends of a conversation where after that conversation evidence is destroyed. It's disgusting. All right, Tom, you have gotten a lot of information out through Judicial Watch, and there was a federal judge who ordered that Hillary Clinton answer written interrogatories before the election. So you're the one who served the written interrogatories or wrote them. Did you serve them, and has she answered them, and what are they about?
Well, our lawyers wrote them, to be clear. We served them in the end of August. They were due September 29th, but her counsel communicated with our lawyers and said they needed 2 more weeks, which we gave them. Of course
they needed 2 more weeks. They're trying to get it past the election.
So they are due October 13th, and they have to be submitted or sworn to by Mrs. Clinton, so their answers under oath. And they're about the Freedom of Information Act. They're about the destruction of records and how the system worked, who set it up, how it ran, and what was she thinking when she was doing all this government business on a separate server and not telling anyone about it and not saving and protecting the records as the law requires.
You know, the document dumps that the FBI has been releasing on these Friday afternoons, are you able to get any unredacted versions, or is everything redacted for you as well? I mean, is the federal judge requiring more from them?
Yeah, we're seeing what everyone else is seeing. The FBI, by the way, was using Judicial Watch documents we had gotten to question witnesses. I mean, that's how bad it is. We'll be getting a Friday dump next week of the FBI emails that they recovered off of the Clinton system that she had tried to delete or otherwise kept from the government on next Friday. So they'll get new Clinton emails from the FBI next Friday or through the State Department. So these Friday dumps are going to be coming through the election. And, it used to work that you could keep bad things secret by dumping them on Friday. Well, thanks to shows like this, it ain't working that well anymore.
All right. Tom Fitton, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Judge.
And we'll be right back with Street Justice. You've waited for it all night, and it's finally time for your dose of My Street Justice. This week, I asked people what they want to hear from the candidates in the next presidential debate. Take a look.
What would you tell them for the next debate? What would you tell Hillary and what would you tell Trump?
Be prepared and tell us exactly what you're going to do.
Did you hear this in the last debate?
No, I did not.
Did you watch the debate? Oh, yes, you did. Don't tell me you didn't watch the debate. I know you did.
I'm Canadian. It wouldn't help you.
She's Canadian. What do you think of what's going on in this country with this election?
You have a tough decision to make.
Yeah?
I'm looking at both your candidates and...
Why, you think Trudeau is such a walk in the park?
I think he's a little more sophisticated than a couple of candidates that you have.
Are you worried about the open borders, us United States citizens coming into Canada?
I felt that it was a very one-sided battle. I thought that Trump did not display professionalism.
So what does Trump need to do in the next debate?
I think he should quit, honestly, at this point.
That doesn't make sense, and he's not going to do that. What would you tell him for the next debate? What would you recommend?
He had a lot of opportunities to attack her on so many different levels. Simply, she's the most corrupt individual that's ever ran for president.
What's she going to do for the next debate?
She's going to be on her heels, and she's going to be coming out with their typical response of it's, conservative conspiracy.
Yeah, the old right-wing conspiracy. Hey, I got some millennials. What are you going to tell Trump for the next debate?
He always speaks in generalizations, and I think he has to have a more meticulous plan moving forward. Absolutely. Before just saying, hey, I'm going to do this.
Absolutely.
This is the plan, but what is the actual plan?
I'm pretty sure during the debate on Monday, at least 15 or 20 times he said, we got to bring the jobs back. We're going to bring them back. But every single time he would be asked, how are you going to bring it back? He would just say, we're going to bring the jobs back, don't worry. So it's more so he's making promises with no sort of plan to execute on those promises.
Well, Hillary's been there for 30 years, made a lot of promises, and jobs have gone to hell in a handbasket.
I run the New York State Democratic Party.
Oh, we are in luck. What would you recommend in the next debate for him and for her?
Listen, I just assumed that Donald Trump is going to do better in the next debate because he's going to have to prepare. That was the criticism of him this time.
I'm not even going to ask him who he's going to vote for. Do you want to know who I'm going to vote for?
Yeah, who are you going to vote for?
I'm not going to tell you. Did you watch the debate? You don't want to talk about the debate? I'm walking backwards. Boy, some people just don't have a sense of humor.
Friend me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Judge_Jeanine. Thanks for watching, and tune in tomorrow night for a special Sunday edition of Justice at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Greg Gutfeld is next. See you tomorrow night.